If you know someone with ADD or ADHD, you know that it isn't that they don't like plans. They actually love them. They usually have about a dozen of them, maybe more, spinning, evolving, and being reimagined at any given moment. I know that because I fit that stereotype perfectly. I love the structure of a new system. I love the surge of vision that makes you feel like you can conquer the world by lunchtime. And then, by about 1:30, you're standing in the kitchen trying to remember why you walked in there, while also mentally redesigning your garage and wondering if you should finally learn Greek. There is a lot happening up here. But here's the honest truth. My perseverance is usually fueled by achievement. I like to see the dial move. I love the burst of dopamine that comes with checking a box and seeing that what I'm doing is actually working. When you see results, staying the course feels like a win. But when the achievement is absent, when you're doing the work, praying the prayers, and making the sacrifices, but the dial doesn't move an inch, perseverance gets really heavy. It feels less like a journey and more like a treadmill. A very spiritual treadmill, sure, but you're still staring at the same wall. That's where I hit a wall. Natural grit eventually runs out, and that's where I need the Spirit to step in. Because left to myself, I will turn a season of waiting into a season of failure. I assume that if I can't see movement, I must be doing something wrong. And then I try to redesign it all like we talked about earlier. But we need the Spirit to remind our restless hearts that God's timing is not a performance review. We're failing. I've been sitting in that tension lately. I have plans, good, holy things I believe could honor God and bless our boys. But I'm realizing that my deadline is often just a demand for clarity, and if I'm honest, a demand for control. I'd gladly accept a color-coded Google Calendar invite from the Lord explaining the next 10 years. Hey, Cody, this is a hard season. It's going to last 7 months, but don't panic. Also, buy more coffee. But life with God doesn't come with that calendar invite. It comes with a calling and a deeply uncomfortable invitation to trust Him when the timing makes zero sense to you. Because the reality is, this due season is not my deadline. Welcome to an extra shot of Grace in the Grind. This is the part of the podcast where the mic probably should have been turned off, but we kept talking anyways. It's the bonus space for deeper theology, honest stories, and a level of caffeinated commentary I should probably apologize for in advance. So grab your coffee, take a breath, and let's get into this. So in the main episode, we talked about being stuck in the middle. But I want to press into the harder part of faith, surrendering good desires. It's one thing to let go of sin. At least we know those need to go. It's another thing to surrender a desire for a stronger family, a healthier home, or a ministry that bears fruit. Because these things are good. We assume God is obligated to bring them about on our schedule. But a good desire can become a crushing burden when we demand that it happens right now. Sometimes we aren't asking the Lord, is this yours? We're asking, Lord, will you please hurry up and bless the things I've already decided you should do? I say that as somebody sitting right in the middle of it. Surrender sounds spiritual until it touches something you actually care about. Then it feels like surgery. Laying down a dream doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clutching. It's saying, Lord, I'll be faithful with what's in front of me, but I won't demand the future match the picture in my head. That's hard. Galatians 6:9 says, let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we'll reap if we do not give up. Paul doesn't say you'll reap when it feels reasonable or when it finally is something people notice. He says in due season. Due season means an appointed time, God's time, not random or forgotten, but also not my deadline. If I'm honest, I don't usually want due season. I want soon season. I want right now season. I want a clear agenda and one achievable milestone at a time. But Paul anchors us in endurance. The danger in the middle season isn't usually dramatic disobedience. It's quiet resignation. It's the slow shift where we stop expecting God to move and just start enduring Him. Endurance isn't glamorous. No one puts it on a coffee mug because it sounds exhausting. But God forms us not by giving constant feedback, but by teaching us to trust Him when the feedback is absent. Our culture struggles with this because we want immediate outcomes. Plant Monday, Harvest Friday, Post the Testimony Sunday, but Scripture gives us a different category. Faithful people who never see the full result of their faithfulness. Hebrews 11 talks about people who died in faith, not having received the things promised, but having seen them from afar. They died in faith, not failure. Their faithfulness wasn't measured by whether they held the finished product. Sometimes God doesn't give us the view. He gives us the field. If the harvest belongs to God, I don't have to manipulate it or panic when it's slow. Some things we're building right now may bloom in our children or grandchildren's lifetime. If our goal is to finish everything ourselves, that's disappointing. But if our goal is to steward our part faithfully, it's beautiful. Maybe the point was never to own the harvest, but to be faithful with the seed. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. 1 Corinthians 3:6. That verse is freeing because growth doesn't depend on me. But man, it's frustrating because it doesn't obey my schedule either. I can take a good calling and start treating it like it depends entirely on me. In parenting, marriage, or work, I start out faithful. Then I get nervous, and then I start gripping. Suddenly, obedience becomes control wearing church clothes. Control says, if you really cared, you'd carry this harder. You'd pick up more. But Psalm 127 says, unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. It doesn't say, don't build. It says, don't build like you are God. You are trusting your own efforts more than you're trusting God's providence. The absence of visible progress doesn't mean God is absent. You may be gathering stone, but God builds the house. This is where David's story hits home. David wanted to build the temple. It wasn't an ego trip. It was a holy desire. But God told him he wouldn't be the one to build. Solomon would. God didn't tell David the desire was bad. He just said, not your hands. What do we do when God says no to a good goal? If you're like me, you assume a burden on the heart equals immediate completion. But sometimes the next step is just preparation. David didn't pout. He gathered materials, prepared his son, and organized the work. That is surrender with a shovel in your hand. Faithfulness isn't always measured by what we finish, but by what we prepare for the next person to carry. The kingdom is built by preparers, people who pray prayers that outlive them. That was David at the end of his life. In some seasons, that's us. I'm learning slowly, and usually with the maturity of a toddler who missed his nap, that my job isn't to force the product, but to be faithful with the preparation. I would prefer a progress bar. I love progress bars. Even when it tells me 3 minutes remaining for 47 minutes, at least it's pretending to give me info. But God gives us daily bread, enough strength for today's step. Sometimes that's hard for me. But it leads to the question, can I prepare without possessing? Can I bless a future I won't personally enter? That's generational faithfulness. Moses led to the edge. David gathered the stone. So the prayer is, Lord, make me faithful in the part of the story I actually hold. Not the part I wish I held, but the seed, the bedtime story, the unseen sacrifice. Obedience lived quietly reshapes the heart. So here's your challenge. Do not just name what you're waiting for. Name what you're preparing. When we only focus on the wait, we get resentful. When we focus on the preparation, we become faithful. Ask yourself, am I responding to what God has actually asked of me? Or am I reacting to expectations, comparison, or fear? You can't control the legacy 50 years from now, but you can tend the seed with integrity today. Pray this, Lord, if this harvest belongs to another season, make me faithful in this one. If I do not get to build the temple, teach me how to gather the stone. That prayer loosens our grip without emptying our hands. Due season is not my deadline. That means some good things won't happen as fast as we hoped. But some faithful lives are called to gather the stone and strengthen the generation. That isn't a lesser calling. It's a holy one, no matter what my ADD brain thinks about it. Don't despise the preparation. Don't assume God is absent because the timeline is long. Keep building what's in your hands. You don't have to carry the weight of what's next. You just have to be faithful with what's now. Thanks for joining me for this extra shot. If this hits home, send it to someone who's tired of planting. Until next time, keep your coffee strong and your heart steady in the season God has actually given you.